Hi,
but
Shay.
it's soothing. Hello,
Hi,
Miss Shay.
you guys see me
Are we
now?
on?
Okay, it says that we're live. It says that we're live. So,
Awesome.
okay, now it's
Okay, awesome.
saying we're live. Okay, we're live. We're live, guys. After all, alrighty. Um, so we'll start with introductions. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Sickle Cell Experience Live. Today we have a great episode where we are titling "There Will Be Consequences." Okay. um, for an interesting show and lineup and a powerful panel of women. I'm so excited. We're going to introduce ourselves. I'll start. I am Shay Breon Howard. I am the co-founder and co-host of the Sickle Cell Experience Live. I'm a writer, filmmaker, photographer, graphic designer, just a creative being. I'm also a mother and the daughter of a sickle cell patient as well. So that is who I am in a nutshell. Would you like to?
Sure.
Sitting right
My
next to
name
me?
is Tracy. I'm also known as Trey Eichhart. I have sickle cell thalassemia, and I'm also a part of the sickle cell experience. I have many shows with the Art Exchange. I am an artist, painter, photographer, and a world traveler.
Awesome.
And that's it.
I can proceed. My name is Nilda Navedo. I am a Hispanic female with sickle cell
Simone?
SS. Oh,
I'm sorry?
Go ahead. I didn't hear it at first. You can proceed, Dr. Simone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not hearing Shay. My name is Dr. Simone. I think many of you know me within the sickle cell community. I hope by now. I'm always bugging you about something or another. It's trying to teach. I am a medical doctor with sickle cell disorder, not currently clinical practicing, but always teaching. And so I have, I'm an author. I'm a two-time best-selling author. And of the book, one of which we will address tonight, called All Rise, the Sickle Cell Community versus the Medical Establishment. And I am an advocate.
Excellent. I look forward to reading your book. My name is Nilda Navedo. I am a Hispanic female living with sickle cell SS. I'm not ashamed to say my age, as we're always very proud. I'm 43. I work locally. I'm originally born from New York. My parents are from Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and work with sickle cell partners of the Carolinas. I love to travel. However, one item that I am very proud of is to consider myself an athlete despite living with sickle cell, as during COVID, I was able to complete a duathlon, which is a back-to-back athletic activity, and it was 4 miles running and 10 miles cycling. So
you should be proud of that. Oh my goodness.
I wanted to earn the medal. I said, they gave the opportunity to break it up, but I said, no, I honestly want to earn this medal, even if I am sleeping for a week. So I was able to, it was done on Halloween, which is perfect weather. And I was able to complete with no complications from sickle cell. So I like to promote wellness, and I like to promote just a healthy lifestyle of exercising and nutrition, living with a chronic illness. So I appreciate being with you ladies on this platform.
Likewise.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. Everybody out in Facebook and YouTube land for watching and joining us, and Hope you're ready for the show. But before we start, can you do us a favor and please like and share this so that other people may get this great information as well? We would greatly appreciate that. All right. So to get started, we're going to be discussing the AMA
Yes.
Code of Ethics opinion. So, Dr. Would you like to start us off here?
Absolutely. So I was taking a look at an article that was sent to us, and it was basically going over the the AMA, the American Medical Association's medical ethics guidelines, and kind of walking us through the fact that it's been around for a while, and it started with, very grandiosely saying each commitment that the doctor should have to the world as they practice medicine, and then so I think the first one is, I'm sorry, 1957. Then the next time I see an update is like around 1980, and it keeps getting edited until it's finally um, the present day version, which is like Appendix D. So you go from Appendix A to Appendix D. But I just thought that some of them were things that we should ponder, because especially in the sickle cell community, I always feel like we're like the medical version of George Floyd. And, you know, uh, it's like, when something happens with the police, I mean, and I know police that I respect, but when something when the police hurts someone, you know we can tend to, just because the police is big in the community and they have a lot of power and they save lives, we can go, oh, but we have to stand by the police, we have to stand by, and we forget the little person who just got hurt by a rogue police officer, right? And a lot of times when I'm reading this medical ethics declarations, I think like, wow, this is exactly like that, where these are supposed to be the principles of medical ethics, and yet whenever the patient gets hurt, and it's brought to the attention, the automatic thing is to side with the medical profession and say, well, it's such an honorable profession and they're trying to save lives. I am a medical doctor. I have tried my entire profession to save lives, but I do understand that there are times when I, as a human being, might miss the mark, and I need to be corrected, and I don't need to have my license pulled or anything like that, unless it's something really, really, really bad. But at least I should have the ear to listen to the patient. And so the first one that I that kind of speaks to me is actually section 1. So there are 10 sections. So it says, these principles are intended to aid physicians individually and collectively in maintaining a high level of ethical conduct. They are not laws, but standards by which a physician may determine the propriety of his conduct in relationship with patients, with colleagues, with members of allied professions, and with the public. Section 1. The principal objective of the medical profession is to render service to humanity with full respect for the dignity of man. Physicians should merit the confidence of patients entrusted to their care, rendering to each a full measure of service and devotion. I almost laughed. Honestly, it was like, wow, we have strayed very far. That's just section 1. And we've strayed very far. Just our when I see patients in the sickle cell community. Okay, here's section 4. The medical professional should safeguard the public and itself against physicians that are deficient in moral character or professional competence. Physicians should observe all laws, uphold the dignity and honor of the profession, and accept its self-imposed disciplines. They should expose without hesitation any illegal or unethical conduct of fellow members of the profession. All right. Section 5. A physician may choose whom he will serve. So you can choose who you want to serve. I actually had forgotten about that. So you retain the right to treat who you want to treat, but it says in an emergency, however, he or she should render service to the best of his ability. Having undertaken the care of a patient, he may not neglect that patient. And unless he or she has been discharged, he may continue, and unless he has been discharged, he may continue his services only after giving adequate notice. He should not solicit patients. But bottom line, he or she, the physician, has to treat the patient in the case of an emergency, period, until the patient is stable, and then give them notice that they're going to stop, that they don't want to treat them and that they should look for another physician. But they can't like leave them high and dry, without medical care in an emergency. And then section 6, a physician should not dispose of his service under terms of conditions which tend to interfere with or impair the free and complete exercise of his medical judgment and skill, or tend to cause deterioration of the quality of medical care. Okay, and then section 10 was the one that I was like, okay. The honored ideals of the medical profession imply that the responsibility of the physician extend not only to the individual, but also to society, where these responsibilities deserve his interest and participation in activities which have the purpose of improving both the health and the well-being of the individual and the community. And when I read these, I think they have failed us. That's what I think. That's the first thing I think. I think we have failed our patients. As a doctor, that's what I think. We have failed our patients. As a patient, I think our doctors that are treating sickle cell patients, they have failed us. Because when I know what's supposed to be done, and it's funny because when I'm a patient, they often say, oh, you should have told us you were a doctor. Why? So you can treat me better and treat the other patient worse? Like, why should I have to tell you that? Why can't you just be on your best behavior, period? So I want us to talk about these guidelines and what your thoughts are when you hear them, in light or in the back, with that as the backdrop for the experiences that you have had with your sickle cell. And I'm thinking this is a good time for Tracy actually to be able to share her story of her treatment as a patient.
Shay, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, that really struck a nerve. The last time I was hospitalized was.
Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah. Last time I was hospitalized was out. It was in Los Angeles, I had a crisis in both shoulders and both arms. So when I went to the hospital, during the assessment, the nurse asked me, where was I feeling pain? And I chose this hospital because they have a record of allowing sickle cell patients to be directly admitted if needed. So I explained to her that both of my shoulders were in pain, and she asked me which shoulder hurt the most, and I told her it was right. So they made a bed ready for me, put me in the ER room, and I arrived, I believe it late at night, maybe 11:30 p.m. And I knew, of course, that I was hydrated, and I asked for water. No one brought it. Said, you know what, we're going to move you, so we're going to bring water. The hour goes up an IV. So they gave me pain medicine, but I know that I need to be hydrated first. 3 hours, 4 hours, 5, 6 hours. I've not had any IV fluid, and I've asked for water repeatedly, and so when I finally saw the doctor, his attention, and automatically had an attitude, looked at me like ever, as helping, or he was about to help another patient, maybe of a different race, and brushed me off. And so as soon as another nurse came, I asked him for water, and 2 more hours passed by. So now we're at 8 hours that I've had no water at all. And so finally, because I didn't have an IV, I, got out of bed, and I went to go find water, and I see this doctor. I said, I've been asking for water for 8 hours, and I have sickle cell, and I explained to him that could be detrimental. And he just points in the direction of, he said, there's some on the counter to the miss, and there was like 4 cups of water on a tray just sitting on the counter that could have been brought to me so long ago. And I, even though I was in excruciating pain, I got 2 cups of water, and I walked back to, to the room I was in. And I set one on the table and one I had in my drinking it. So maybe 10 to 15 minutes later, the doctor comes in the room, and I've on my first cup, and I asked him, hey, pass me the other one. And the doctor says, what, you can't use your left arm? And I was called, and arms are hurting. Like, did you even read the chart? And because my right arm was hurting more, I just felt like it made me feel very bad. And I see that it goes against the code of ethics. How could someone not even want to push water in your direction? And he made it very difficult for me he only tried to give me 0.5 milligrams. I believe it was dotted, and I'm still in pain. I'm telling him it doesn't work. He's trying to argue with me that at this particular hospital, they don't give more than 1 milligram of Dilaudid to sickle cell patients, which I know is not true. So it was at that point that I reached out to my advocate, and my advocate was able to express to this doctor that that's not true. I work regularly, and the patient that I just had sent home the day before had, at least 2 milligrams of Dilaudid. And that was here in the state, and he had an advocate, and I'm thankful that I had an advocate, and that's why advocates are needed, because if it wasn't for that, then he just would have given me 0.5 and didn't care how I felt or what I had to say. And that's here in the States. So that was just past October. And another experience I had in comparison, I was hospitalized. I like to backpack by myself. And I feel that I take pretty good care of myself. I don't get sick very often, but when I do, I am able to pretty much prevent being hospitalized, and I know what my limits are. So I got a little carried away on this trip, and so I was admitted in a hospital in Rome, and when I arrived there, the intake nurse was very helpful. She spoke English, but she was, I believe, a college student. So they immediately gave me morphine, they gave me a bed, and everything seemed okay at first. Then the following morning, I asked for more pain medicine, and they gave me saline solution. So I lied to me and said it was morphine, but I'm like, this story is so long, but
so how did you know? How did you know it wasn't?
I tried 2 days, and I asked for water. They would only 1 bottle of water, and I think I had 1 bag of IV. And I had to find a way to get water because I'm like, you guys are gonna kill me in here. So I had the interns sneaking me water.
Wow.
So to survive, and then once, so then they didn't want to give me any more medicine. And so actually the U.S. Embassy got involved. My mother called them, I called them, and another close friend called them, and they basically tried to help me through the situation. And then the staff immediately got in. They didn't even want to help me get up to go to the bathroom, which was out of this hospital.
So they're punishing you now for.
I think you froze. So I ended up talking to the interns that did speak English, and come to find out, health care is free in Italy, and regardless of how much they're paid, they have to take care of patients. So at this point, they had become desensitized, and they did not care about the treatment because they were going to get paid regardless, pretty much what I got from it. Yeah. And it was experience. On the 3rd day, even though I didn't speak Italian, I knew a few phrases. I motioned to them, you need to decided that I was going to have a better chance at survival taking care of myself in this hospital where they're not giving me any. So I, had them take the IV out, and I knew that I couldn't just leave the hospital because if I had to go again, they could refuse me. So I had them sign the documents. They let me go. I found a nearby hotel, and I caught a cab I walked up 2 flights of steps to go put my luggage in there, came back down, walked around the corner to get I got 6 bottles of water, carried them in my arms, which were still hurting, went ordered, food delivery, and I had, I believe it was like 800 milligrams of ibuprofen, I believe, that I had got from my doctor before I left. And that is what saved me. And I nursed myself back to health over the next 4 days in room, because it was better. I don't know how anyone could sell on one. Most people can't even survive on 1 bottle of water. So the thing is, sickle cell is present in Italy. So they knew what it was and they knew how to treat it. But maybe because I was a kid, I felt that because I had sickle cell, I shouldn't be traveling. And one of the nurses did explain this. Why are you traveling with sickle cell?
Like you want to leave.
Yeah, I'm like, that's none of your concern. I just need help right now. So those are the similarities. It just seems like the nurses and the doctors were very, very desensitized. And it's interesting though, because here in America, we do have health insurance, it's not necessarily completely free for everybody. So it's, I think people desensitized, and maybe it feels overwhelming for them. But this is, the career they have chosen. So where do we go from here?
Wow.
Let's give them a chance to respond, because I think they're getting it a little later, and then we have something to say. But I would.
That's really unfortunate. I think what I'm hearing from that conversation is that.
Any questions or anything?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from her conversation is that it doesn't matter where you go.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me? Oh, now I can't hear Nilda. What's going on?
I wonder if they're getting it like this.
I'm getting a lot of interruption when it comes to Shay's end, but I can hear Dr. Simone clearly. But Shay has been frozen since we started, and it sounds very choppy.
Being said,
wow. Shay, can you even hear us?
Way off, right?
Can you hear me, Nilda?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, I can hear you fine as well. Shay, can you hear us? Okay. Okay. I'm not hearing her.
Yeah, on Facebook they say that they can hear us.
Can you guys hear me? I'm wondering if you're just hearing me, Nilda, but nobody else is.
So, and the messages from Facebook, they're saying that they can hear us, but it's delayed.
Okay.
But if anyone can respond, if you can hear Dr. Simone. Yes, they said they can.
Okay.
So
okay. Okay. All right. Good. So I think what I'm hearing from her conversation is that it really doesn't matter if you're in the United States or in Italy, we're thinking, oh, it's Italy, but probably what they experience is very similar to us, where it's a disease you can't see, and you have to believe the patient when they say they're in pain. And so, and probably the people who come with sickle cell disorder are people of color too. And so that duality of like maybe a racism tinged, perception of the patient might be happening as well. And so they're not getting, like, I don't know if like a light skinned Italian would have the same reception, or a light skinned American, since sickle cell can be so diverse. It'd be interesting to see, what someone who looks white but has sickle cell, how they would be treated versus how Tracy would be treated.
Yes.
Okay.
I
know you're trying to decide if you should go.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if Shay's trying to come in, since I can't tell. Ladies, if you can give us a signal. It jumped off. Okay. So while
Okay. All right.
All right.
we got you back.
Yay!
That's
It's so beautiful to see your face. I almost want to reach in and hug you.
It took a little second, to try to get it together.
It's all good. You're here.
Yeah. Put up the volume.
Okay. Can you hear us better now?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay.
No. We can see you now, but now we can't. You sound very low.
Where's the speaker or the microphone?
Is it better now?
It sounds a little bit better.
Okay, I think it's okay. How's
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
How's that? That better?
I can hear you better.
Okay. All right. I had to flip it and flip it.
Okay. All right. Just make sure you lean in so we can get the full voice.
All right.
All right.
Not in the camera, but okay.
So
you're both in the camera. You're both in.
Yeah, you're both in the camera.
Okay.
So Nilda, well, I was just saying it sounds like her, Tracy's, not her, the beautiful Tracy, that her experience sounds almost similar in the United States and in Italy. You'd think, oh, it's Italy, right? But I would want to know what it would look like, or what the experience would be if, like, someone who looked white but had, sickle cell or sickle thalassemia, which tends to be in that, in the Mediterranean, how they would perceive them. Because when you're a person of color, then there's a whole other dynamic that's playing in there, and you're like, I'm not sure if they're, if this is some, covert racism going on, or is this them really just not knowing how to treat sickle cell in general, and it's so hard because wherever you go as a person of color, you have those two things that you're wondering which one is playing its role right now that's causing you to have a lower standard of care, and you can't really tell, but it sounds very similar, the United States versus Italy. And I was saying that this is probably a good time for Nilda to share what she was thinking about with respect to what we talked about earlier off camera.
Yes, I first I wanted to mention that I have connected with persons from Italy that do have sickle cell, and to hear you say that the medical community has failed us. It felt heavy to hear you say that, because even though it is the reality, it unfortunately it's happening everywhere. So it's not limited. I've connected with persons in Italy. I've gone to Cuba and Brazil, and our story does not change. My family's from Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, and even with warriors from there, it is the same story. Even at times worse, and it becomes this thing where they have other issues to worry about when it comes in a sense of poverty, that at times for them to think of what they're going to eat, it takes over the thought of how they're feeling, because there's no medical treatment in certain areas. Even though they do have free medical care, it does not mean that they have better care in that sense. And earlier, when we had spoken about the medical industry, we had spoken about the Derek Chauvin murder trial. And it is a topic that I had shared in my page, as well as with Marissa, and now thankfully with the Sickle Cell Experience. So when the judge had given the instructions before the deliberations, I kept rewinding. So I rewinded it several times because it just stood out to me. As he was reading the instructions to the jury, as far as the steps that they're supposed to put their mindset before doing the deliberations, I connected it to us. And I needed to find out why. And that's why I kept it on repetitive mode. So these are the 5 that I had written down in which he had shared. The judge dictated these 5, and I'll see if it resonates with you, same as it did with me. The first one was, your notes are an aid to your memory, but not a substitute for it. Listening to different, that's a big one. The second is, listening to different perspectives may help you to better identify the problem, the possible effects of these hidden biases, which may have on decision making. So let me reread that. Listening to different perspectives may help you to better identify the possible effects these hidden biases may have on decision making. The third, resist jumping to conclusions based on personal likes or dislikes, generalizations, gut feelings, prejudices, sympathies, stereotypes, or unconscious biases. The fourth was, the law demands that you make a fair decision based solely on the evidence, your individual evaluation of that evidence, your reason and common sense. The fifth is, you must not let bias, prejudice, passion, sympathy, or public opinion influence your decision. And now that I read these out, and I've read these out possibly a couple of times because I've even shared it with my family. And to me, it's that I see the life of the individual. It deserves a careful assessment of their symptoms, as well as past history. You know, we are born with a chronic illness, and we do come under the definition to what is now the hashtag Stop Sickle Cell Abuse. And when I had seen the judge give those instructions, it's unfortunate that I am seeing a trial, but then it's as if we are on trial. And we have this thing where persons do not want to go to the hospital because of the feeling that they are not going to be believed, that they are going to be mistreated, and simply they rather suffer at home than to have this fight in a place where they're supposed to receive care.
Like Tracy.
Yes.
Exactly.
So even if you were out, the things that you explained in your story, having to ask for water, having to get up to get your water, knowing that you have an illness, that water is like the overall free medication that is available to us, because we need to hydrate. That's the number one thing. And then for you to not being able to be given an item that will allow you to hydrate yourself, especially at a time that you're in pain, you're stressed, you're in an area that is unknown. So you have an overwhelming amount of things that are happening aside from your pain. And the fact that you are at a location, you know, when we go to a hospital, that's where we should let our kind of relax, you know, like, yes, this is where I'm going to be treated.
Yep.
This is where I'm going to be taken care of. I'm okay. And
I'm so embarrassed. I'm so embarrassed.
And that's unfortunately not what's happening. So to listen to this trial, and why I speak of this trial, because it's still fresh in our memory, this is not the way we should think about our community. We shouldn't look at an instruction that a jury's receiving to do a deliberation as a spoken word that should be told to a physician on how to act upon us. And what it said, it's just so many things: the biases, the prejudice, what you have heard. That is a big one. Do not take what you have heard into your thoughts to make a decision on this person's life. But unfortunately, it is those same situations that are put upon us. Even if we're there for the first time, we're being judged and categorized, and we haven't even introduced ourselves, and there's already a thought before us receiving care.
Wow. Before I forget, let me say this. Nilda, well, let me say this first. Nilda, I can see why those things resonated with you. I did not turn on the TV the whole day because of my whole body couldn't handle it. You know, I was just like, if this guy gets off, there is no hope. Like, you know, they're just, if the whole world saw this and somehow he gets off, there's just no hope for us, right? And because I always liken it to how we are, you know, treated, as I mentioned, you know, as I said, I feel like it can be people wanting to be on the side of the police because, you know, they have rough jobs and they, you know, and they put their lives on the line. And then with doctors, it's like, oh, but they're saving lives. And it's almost like there is no regard for the person, you know, for the person that's vulnerable, right? So here we have Tracy, who has to go and get water, climb into a hotel and drink. And that's the second thing I was going to say. If you cannot get IV fluids, drink water. Believe it or not, in some situations, it is better than IV fluid because of something that we have going on in our kidneys. It's called isostenuria, but I'm not going to go into the weeds with you. Because of how our kidneys function in a sickle cell crisis, it actually is to our benefit to drink water. So if they can't start an IV on you, it's all right. Drink and drink and drink, because that's actually going to hydrate your red blood cells and it's going to replete your volume quicker than the IV fluids, because a lot of times they give us the wrong IV fluids, and that's a whole other, you know, conversation. I have a video on my YouTube teaching channel about that. So, you know, if you can't get IV fluids, get water. But they weren't even giving her water. They weren't even giving her water after 6 hours.
5 times at least. Every time I saw a nurse or doctor, I asked, and no one brought anything. They kept saying, okay, we'll bring it, and no one ever did anything.
That tells me that they have no clue what sickle cell disease is, that you're getting end organ damage. As you wait, tick tock, that you're getting end organ damage because Your blood is not, your red blood cells aren't getting hydrated. They're still getting, going in their sickle form. There's not enough volume so that your little red blood cells could kind of stand apart from each other. There's nothing that they're giving you to fight with. And then they wonder why you're in the hospital for so long. Well, if you take so long to start treatment, by the time you start treatment, so much has happened that it takes a whole long hospitalization to get you back to baseline. A lot of times they could avoid a whole lot of that if they would just jump on it as soon as you get there, but they still don't get that. So
one
I
part.
don't.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll explain after you finish.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I forgot to mention that even after these things happened, after once I got the water, so there were two doctors. There was a lead doctor and then I guess a general doctor. The lead doctor asked me 3 times when was the last time I was hospitalized. He asked as if to say like I was, a drug seeker after all of this. And I had to explain to him that I take care of myself, regularly or pretty as best I can, and I stay out of the hospital. And I kept trying to explain to him I don't want to be here. And it wasn't until then that they actually tried to do something, of course with also the help of my advocate, but it just appeared that they just didn't want to hear anything I had to say.
That's interesting. So only until you told them that you're not in the hospital often, that's when they kind of picked up their pace with treating you. So kind of like their presumption was that you were just a regular seeker of the emergency room. And so
yeah. And then when I asked, for I said, how do I make a complaint with this hospital? I said, what is that doctor's name? What is this doctor's name? The nurse didn't want to give me any information. And he brought me a pen and 3 sheets of computer paper and I said, okay, well, where do you have, is there an email, an address I can send this to? He said, oh, I can give it to them. I said, no, we're not going to do that.
See, and that's the other thing. When was it okay for doctors to lie and tell you that they can only give you 1 milligram of Dilaudid, or that they could only do this or do that? Like when it's not true. When was it ever okay that doctors could say, you know what, I'm uncomfortable giving you this much. Well, you know what, I'm uncomfortable having this disease. How about that? I'm uncomfortable living with this disease. So you're uncomfortable giving me pain medicine. I'm uncomfortable living in pain. I don't, so we both uncomfortable. So now let's figure out how we gonna get out of this discomfort, because that to me, it doesn't make sense. And it's why I wrote this book, you guys. I know I feel like I'm always talking about this book, and it almost sounds like I'm doing an infomercial, but I don't care. I don't really care. Let me read something to you, because this is why this. Okay, chapter 15. Oh, let me show you the book. I don't care what you say about me showing you the book either, because you need to read the book. Okay. Chapter 15, page 119 says, there will be consequences. And I will, this is addressing doctors. So I said, with all that you have heard, I'm hoping that you as an individual, because it starts with one, will agree with me that a lot of education and change needs to happen in the management of sickle cell disease and in the care of the person behind the disease. That person, we must first agree, is worth saving. That's the problem. That person is worth saving. We must also agree that what we are doing may not be working well, and we need to improve outcomes. You are dealing with a population of wonderful, intelligent, and compassionate people, and you hardly know us. You are an outpatient provider. If you are an outpatient provider, you likely see us in increments of 15 minutes, often because we are sick and needing care. You do not see us at our best. If you are a hospitalist, you see us maybe a few times a year for slightly longer periods during a hospital stay, but still, you interact very little. You hardly ask questions that can help you learn. Maybe you think you don't have anything to learn from us. But like everyone else you meet, we have full lives beyond the walls of your clinic or hospital. What you see each time we present sick to your clinic is likely the worst version of us. We come we come in vulnerable and broken, but we live beautiful, rich, and colorful lives in the world, and we have families and friends who see our worth, grieve, grieve when we are hurt, and miss us when we are not around. We are doctors and nurses too, and many of us have the incentive to pursue and create a better way of caring for patients, providing better and more compassionate treatment than the one that we were shown. We are lawyers and know what to do when HIPAA violations occur or when there is widespread mismanagement that needs to be reported. We are journalists who know how to spread news through electronic, print, and social media to shine light on wrongs done to a community and praise the works of the Good Samaritans. I know of some wonderful doctors and nurses doing excellent work caring for sickle cell patients. This is because their names are acknowledged in shout outs for superior care, and it's usually done by a patient. These online applauses are usually in our groups with thousands of members so that others can see which doctors are supporters of patients like us. I say a silent prayer of blessing and well wishes for these names of each provider I see. Why does it matter? What do we stand to lose if we do not change? More than you realize. It may not be readily apparent, but this is why I have chosen to come forward and write this book. The consequences of doing nothing will affect both parties. Some consequences may be small but significant. The sickle cell patient, traumatized by previous experiences, at your hands no less, and without therapy for that trauma, now presents to the emergency room like a cat with an arched back ready for a fight. The next healthcare professional that the patient encounters who displays any sign of ignorance of the disease or worse, indifference towards it, may be met with the brunt of that patient's unresolved anger despite their overall intention and possible desire to help. Regardless of that doctor's attempt at a professional demeanor, I can vouch for most doctors that a negative encounter like this will often frame the way that they think that about that patient going forward. Then, unfortunately, because we tend to generalize, it will extend to thinking that this encounter is typical of all sickle cell patients. Bad news spreads faster. So even three great behaving sickle cell patients often cannot compensate for the unfortunate encounter of one patient. Any further introductions to other disagreeable patients perpetuates the idea of sickle cell patients being difficult, and all because of displaced anger, frustration, and disappointment a patient has, especially towards urgent care or emergency care providers, for the emotional baggage that we have experienced. It is a vicious cycle. Someone should decide to be more mature and end it. I'm doing the best I can to encourage my sickle cell community, despite feeling like they've been hurt so many times by the medical establishment, to still consider terms of peace and what that would look like. It will likely take some self reflection. But since this book is written to those of you in healthcare, I want you to ask yourself if, as a provider, you are part of the problem or the solution when it comes to having positive encounters with sickle cell patients. Are you partaking in conversations that quickly spread a negative stereotype? It may start from the very moment you hear that you will be having a sickle cell patient in your caseload. I've had a nurse friend tell me of all the eye rolling and body language displayed, and even openly demeaning words some providers respond with when they hear that they're receiving a sickle cell patient. Are you part of that problem? Truthfully, anyone can join the herd mentality and act in the same old way. Or you can choose to grow a little each time that you counter your peers with a more mature perspective. Maybe I can appeal to your highest angel and ask that you remind your colleagues that patients are people at their worst, and some of what the staff is seeing may have a mental health component from recurrent trauma a patient can experience. I'm not asking you to make continuous excuses for bad behavior, but simply provide insight as to where it is coming from. It's the equivalent of saying, it's not right, but I understand. The patient still needs to be respectful in any situation, but I get how they got here. I'm going to jump. The medical institution has not caught up with the fact that even patients have found ways to expose unprofessional behavior. They have tried the proper channels of reporting misconduct and found them ineffective. People are now taking their cases to the court of public opinion since the normal channels are not working for them. Many of you would be surprised to know that you may have been recorded or videotaped, but there are many clips of videos and audio recordings reflecting poor behavior in our healthcare providers across the country. These videos are being shared very liberally across social media in many of the groups. It would only be a matter of time that those videos fall in the hands of professionals who could unfortunately do career-ending things with those videos. I shudder sometimes and even wonder about footage that looks so professional, or when there are videos with people's phones clearly visible and obviously not doing the taping or recording. And it goes on, but you know, I try to appeal to both sides. I try to appeal to, to the doctor that might actually still want to change, right? And say, listen, you say, oh yeah, they're drug, oh yeah, right? Or you can actually think about it and say something different and break the cycle. Because you can. It takes one person to do that. A lot of times, we've been in conversations where everybody's saying one thing and one person goes, you know what, that's not right. And it shuts it all down. And that's all it takes is just a little bit of courage. So I am not impressed when there is a doctor that just goes right along with that narrative that ends up hurting us. I'm not impressed because it doesn't take much to go along with that same narrative and get everybody else to cheer you that believes that narrative. It takes a lot more courage to stand up and say something different and stand alone because of it. But for the people who want to continue, I do believe that there will be consequences, because these days it's not even sickle cell patients that might be turning them in. These days, their own colleagues could be audio taping them, videotaping them, and waiting for a right moment. Maybe they're competing with them for a position. Maybe they're who knows, and then waiting for the right moment to just launch, that footage or launch that audio tape put it in the right hands. Looks are deceiving. They could be thinking, oh, only dark color skinned people have sickle cell, and you may not know that your boss or your boss's boss actually is the mother and a trait carrier, but has a child with sickle thalassemia and doesn't appreciate your rants or your inconsideration towards treatment of sickle cell disease. They're not knowing where it's going to come from, but it is coming, because with the advent of all of these technologies that you can use so discreetly, I think people should be thinking twice about anything they say in public unless they want it to be shown for the whole world to see. And yet you see doctors videotape all the time saying really terrible things. And I'm like, really? You still haven't caught up with this yet? It's amazing. But I don't know. I think as a physician, I just want to say I am so sorry. I always feel bad, I don't know. I always feel like, my gosh, I don't even know where to start. But where I have started was trying to start the conversation and reframe the conversation. This book was published in 2019, right? And here we are, and we're still having this conversation, and more stuff is happening, and you're like, you know, so.
And
I
we had
honestly, to add to what you were saying, I've gone to the hospital while I was reading this book and while I was reading your first book, and I've talked to my doctors about it. I've taken it to doctor's appointments, and I don't personally know if they went and took the initiative to read the books, but I do know they asked a lot of questions and they were very interested and invested in what I was saying about the book and how far I've gotten. My doctors do know that I'm an advocate, so I hear nurses come in, oh, bragging, oh, your doctor always says how proud they are of you and this and that. So I feel like hopefully the respect that I get from them saying they're proud of me, they took the initiative to actually read the book, and you know, um, I think that they have, because it's been it hasn't really been hard with my primary care physician, because she's seen, I don't know if she has a specific person that she knows, or she just knows sickle cell that much that she doesn't feel like
That's great.
it's a issue for her. Like if I'm in the hospital and she has rights to a hospital that I usually go to. So if I'm saying that the pain medicine that I'm receiving is not enough, it's at my normal dose, or the frequency is not good enough, she doesn't question it. She doesn't, oh, are you sure? It's immediately, okay, we'll change it and we'll take care of it. And
That's
either,
awesome.
yeah, I think that
I
it's
want
just
to know the name of that doctor, because we want to give her props too. These are the doctors that we need. That's how we counter this stuff. We just highlight all the awesome, the awesome people that are doing the right job, you
right.
know.
Well, her name is a little hard to pronounce. Her name is Chioma Mbakwe. She's Nigerian, but
Okay.
but yeah, she's an amazing doctor, and she does like, out of all of my doctors, she understands the most. I don't have to ask, multiple times for something. She's very caring. She's very compassionate, because that's something that is.
That sounds like someone who has seen the struggle closer.
I
It
think
might be
so.
that,
I think
yeah,
so. And
that
honestly,
sounds like
what she
someone
said,
who's seen the struggle closer. Because when I was practicing, I had my little back door of all my sickle cell patients, whatever they wanted. I was just writing, like that's,
yeah, because like
and,
they,
and, and not like in an abusive way, but like they don't have to explain to me they're in pain. I know they're in pain, you
exactly.
know, but, but your doctor sounds like someone who's been touched in an intimate way by this disease somehow, maybe a friend or, somebody, to where she realizes that, that she takes away, if she were to do that to you, she would take away a piece of your dignity, and she wouldn't do that. And so it becomes a beautiful, doctor patient relationship, which is
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, and I think that is because like she's met Nyla, she's around Nyla. There's one point in time that I didn't have anyone to watch Nyla. This was before COVID. So it was like I needed to get a blood transfusion, and I was like, no, I can't stay. And she pretty much from vacation made them let me keep my daughter. I usually don't say that
Wow.
out loud, but yeah, so I was able to keep her with me.
Now,
And
see, that's what I'm talking about right there. That's another Beth Martin. Beth Martin was my doctor. She wrote a letter saying, "Listen, when she comes in, this is what she should get. Bam, 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 bam." And it's in electronic medical records. You can look it up. She got a printed copy, and I don't want to hear about it. And the pharmacy and everybody was like, really? We're supposed to give her like all that? Isn't that kind of high? But they couldn't really do anything because she was actually high up in the oncology hematology team. So it was like, you know, but that's a kind of, you want to do shout outs because I'm telling you, that's a breath of fresh air to hear.
And I think that's why I added that, because I don't want people to, like, I get that we have, because I have my horror stories as well,
Of course.
but I feel like people need to hear the refreshing stories, because I know I'm reading comments, I'm sharing the comments on the video as we go along, and I understand that hurt and that pain and that story behind all the things that is being said. But I also want to recognize that there are doctors out there who care, who really, she didn't have to do the things that she's done for me. That's just the shirt,
No.
So it's just like I needed to give her recognition, because I do have a doctor like that,
Mm-hmm.
to the
Yeah.
capacity that she can help me, and beyond that she does stretch herself, because I recognize that. I have to let that be known, because I've shared stories about horrible doctors, and I've also shared stories about great doctors that I've had, and I think that it's about balance. I think that those of you who are watching and paying attention, and feeling what we're talking about, every part of this, I know it hits you. And I've seen your stories that you're putting. Think about, some of the good doctors that you had too, and put some of those stories in the comments as well, because you understand that sickle cell is also an emotional and stress triggered disease. So for someone else who could be watching, who wants to get this valuable information from us, and they want to, participate in the comments, they might feel a little, maybe they don't have as many bad experiences, or maybe they're being triggered emotionally or stress wise because of the comments. So I just, I urge everybody to share positive things as well. Not saying that you can't share the negative. Just, if you have positive things and great doctors, other patients need to know about those doctors, because
Yeah.
there's way too many of the, like, just how when there's mass shootings, I never share the person that shot the people. I share the victims, and I share the, what I'm saying? You don't share the bad stuff so much, as much as you share the good things, so people can take away something from it and actually get the help that they need. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
I will say this though, Shay. I do believe that unfortunately, because of so many layers of things that are going on when people encounter a sickle cell patient, that there are a lot more stories that are horrible than
I
any
know.
other
I know.
disease that I have come across, even as a physician. Like, I think about, they would never do that to a leukemia patient. Like, and even when I was in the hospital the last time, you know I try to be respectful. I really do. But this one doctor just came in, did not know me from Adam, and was like, "Oh, we're not doing an exchange This was last year. We're not doing an exchange transfusion on her. What qualifies her for an exchange trans?" Now, I've been getting this for a year, almost to the point of trying to put in a fistula in my arm, right? Because at that time I didn't know that the Adacveo would help me. The Adacveo has been a really great help for me, but up until then I was doing the exchange transfusions, and it wasn't helping all the way, but it was like, better than nothing for sure. And I definitely felt more energy. And even if I still had pain, I would feel energy. But he just came in and decided to cancel it all. and he's hardly even looking at me. And I said, well, thank you for treating your textbook and not the patient, sir. And the physician assistant who was there, Abby, she turned beet red, and she's actually, someone who just wants to wrap her arm around the sickle cell population because she knows how they've been bruised and battered. And so she was, but when I said that, she was like, she literally was like red, like, oh my gosh, you said that to the head of hematology. But at that time, he wasn't the head of hematology to me. He was somebody standing in my way of care. And I said, listen, I'm not asking you for a knapsack of Dilaudid to take home. I'm asking for a transfusion. Like, we're really going to do this for an exchange transfusion? Like, I'm not even asking for pain meds, and we're gonna really go here. So unfortunately, a lot of those stories exist, and it's uncanny because I hear it in Zambia, Nigeria, Nairobi, Kenya, Ghana, West Africa, South Africa, right here in the good old USA, in every state. And the story is the same. It sounds like, the same, it just a different person, a different doctor, the same thing happening. And so that's why I think that we do have to have these conversations. That's why I am, trying to train advocates, like Tracy said. It was her advocate that called, that got her any bit of help, any little bit of help, right? And then they got mad because she called in for reinforcement. I mean, go figure that, right? And so we have to be able to train people on how to make things better for both the patient and for, and better with the doctors, so that there's not a backlash, on the patient for having an advocate. And we have to make it so that they recognize when we come in, that we tell them, yeah, it's a rare disease in the United States. Yeah, it ain't rare anywhere else, but it's, it's a rare disease in the United States. Kind of take the pressure off them to say, you know what, you may not know it because it's such a, it's a rare disease in the United States. So we just want to tell you and make sure that you know that, you really need to be able to, you should be looking at these things. You really need to do this, or, or that. You need to follow the NIH guidelines. They were, not that, I'm going to, say that they were from 2014 and really it's about high time. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say, follow. It'd be good to follow the guidelines. By the way, the guidelines actually say there's really no lab value that actually can tell if a patient is in a sickle cell crisis. So, just so you know, if her labs come back and they look normal, her reticulocyte looks fine, everything looks fine, her hemoglobin looks within the range of normal, she's still sickling. If she's there, she's still sickling. She doesn't want to be there. She's still having end organ damage that you need to stop. So that conversation still needs to happen. Unfortunately, I mean, we can't just be content with a few doctors doing the right thing and a whole slew of doctors, doing the bad thing. We have to have that conversation.
And there's so many stories that, like there's a couple of viewers. We had Miss Leah Vasquez had shared that she's Puerto Rican from part of her family and Jamaican. And she shared that COVID has made it a lot worse. And she, like many other patients, has gone to the hospital when it's a dire need. At the time that we go to the hospital, we have done and tried everything that we can do when we have gone, for at home. So we've already gone to our max. Probably done all the medications that we have, regardless if we have from short term to long term to strong. We've tried those. Then we go to the hospital. COVID has made it extremely difficult because, number one, we do not want to put ourselves at risk. And then we're experiencing so much mistreatment or denial of treatment. And then with COVID, it has made it a lot worse. And her being Hispanic as well, I'm sure she has also heard that. I didn't know Hispanics had sickle cell. And I'm trying to connect with Dr. Todd Savitt because he has done the history on Clement Noel, the first patient with sickle cell. And I am connecting with him to be able to offer the story in our end, from our culture when it comes to having sickle cell anemia, because unfortunately we have other names. So it's not only sickle cell. We also, depending on where you're from, it has other names, but it's the same illness, same symptoms, same requirements. It's the same language, however, with different titles. And that makes it difficult as well. And there is a gentleman that had shared that as a child, you're treated well, and then as an adult, it changes. And he had made a reference to kind of why is that. And I know that recently I had an experience where I was admitted at a different hospital, and I'll share this with you because I was surprised that this is a train of thought for a physician. I was at a location that is not the location that I'm normally admitted to. So it was a hematologist that I had not met. And we had the discussion on pain medication and levels of pain medication because we do build a tolerance. But what I was surprised to hear is that, number one, we do need more adult hematologists. We have changed into the system of specialties. Back then, we had medicine studied as you had to have a broad skill level set. Now it is, everything is divided. So sickle cell is not the way it was with the past physicians that had a general knowledge on sickle cell. And I've seen that, and I understand that now because everyone is focusing on these specialties. Sickle cell, in my eyes, is phased out. Sickle cell is not what it was. But the story that she said to me is that as a pediatrician, when you see a child does not lie. A child does not know to lie. So when a child is in pain, that child is basically, they're perceived as they're having pain, require the medication. And then what surprised me is that the train of thought changes. So she explained it as a child will not lie about his symptoms. So I was offended, number one, as a patient, as a person in general, because then you're telling me that as a physician, the adult that you see, you are picking up that they are not telling you the truth. And I wondered why. Why does that train of thought change? Because we're taught as a child to attend the pain early. And then when we are going to a hospital as being trained to not let the pain go to level 10, you are told, go to the hospital so that your symptoms do not take longer to manage. Go where you're at a medium level so that we can manage your pain. And you see that we approach the hospital and it's not at a level 10 because we're trying to get ahead of it. Now we're not even being seen as someone that's telling the truth.
But that's so sad because okay, let's go with that train of thought. If you believe that children don't lie and a child with sickle cell is crying their eyes out and telling you how painful it is, and you know they don't lie, then you know that sickle cell is that painful. And if you know that sickle cell is that painful, then you should be able to extrapolate that to an adult, whether whether you know them or not. Because now you know, because the child doesn't lie, that sickle cell really is that painful, right? So it doesn't make sense to me that you could turn 18 and cross the bridge and go over to the adult hematologist, and all of a sudden they're acting like you're lying when I sat on a stool this is embarrassing. I sat on a stool until I was almost 22 years old because I didn't want to go to the, now granted, I was diagnosed at 19. I did not want to go to the adult hematology clinic. right? It's already traumatic when you've established relationships with people, who believe you and all of that. I didn't even know I was not going to be believed. That wasn't even the issue. The issue was I just knew these people. They were nice to me. They helped me live when I crashed and coded and all of this stuff. And I just wanted to hang on to them for as long as possible. And so I sat on this little stool that was clearly smaller than me until, when I turned 22, and they're like, well, we can't just say you're 21 plus now. We have to push you over age 21. You have to go over to the adult hematology clinic. But it's amazing that you could have someone who's a child who cries their eyes out and tells you that sickle cell is painful. What do you think happened when they became adult? It stopped being painful?
It's
Like,
not painful. And it's again, even now, with Miss Leah saying that adult hematology in her area focuses on cancer. The problem is that, and again, this is where it's very upsetting. Cancer is where the money is. So when it comes to the specialty of hemoglobinopathies, the money is in the oncology end.
mm-hmm.
So you see like an overflow of oncology, and oncology has a very broad band. However, when you have the oncology that's mixed with hematology, they do not highlight the hematology end. The fact is that oncology is highlighted, and why? Financial. We have an illness, and it's a fight that our voices are. We are a community that, to me, suffers in silence. We suffer in silence in all aspects, whether it comes to law, whether it comes to education, whether it comes to the patient, mental illness, depression. There is like an array of areas that fall under the sickle cell umbrella, but yet many, you might question, well, why does this illness receive more than sickle cell?
But like thalassemia, for example, they're not oncology, but they're still fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're still, getting in and they, a lot of them actually need every 3 weeks, kind of like sickle cell. They will need 6-7 units of blood. So, but they're taken care of. So I am a Pollyanna by choice. I will say that to you. I'm not gonna lie. I love to see the glass half full at all times because that's how I fight. That's how that's just me. What I can't do is ignore the fact that there is so much still left to be done because sickle cell comes with so many other things attached to it, like the fact that we're all brown, like the fact that this is COVID and everybody can say, well, I couldn't come to her because I had to treat my my COVID patients, or I didn't have whatever protection, or fill in the blank, and people are accustomed to us having our resources depleted. They're accustomed to us coming alone. They're accustomed to not having people fight for us. Doctors, they're accustomed to seeing us alone. And I think that they abuse that. I honestly think that when they see someone alone and they don't think that there's someone looking out for them, that they and I think maybe to some extent that's just human nature, right? If you have Big Brother looking over you, you're more likely to dot your I's and cross your T's. And so that's why we need advocacy, is because we need to recreate family, albeit virtual. I don't care, but we need them to see that Big Brother really is looking over your shoulder. Big sister, big brother, auntie, uncle, whatever, looking over your shoulder, and somebody is going to hold you accountable at the end of the day for what you've done. And they're not trying to be disrespectful. They're not trying to just, um, throw shade for no reason. But if you do something wrong, it will be brought to light. And I think when they see people, and they're not going to like us coming, because nothing that they hate more than to have a person of color informed.
Yes.
That's a threat, right? So we're going to have to overcome that. But we need to be with our blood brothers and sisters when they are in the hospital, so that they're not seen as alone and dispensable. And I hate to say it like that, but I believe that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Our community's tax dollars are what's paying for Medicaid, for anyone on Medicaid. So it's not for free. Okay, somebody's paying for us to be there. And it may not be us paying the whole thing, but we got jobs too. We pay taxes. Our mama, our dads, our aunts, our uncles, they're paying taxes, and those taxes is what's helping me to be able to access care and paying you. So keeping that in mind, that, you know how they say the customer is always right. I'm not saying that we are always right. I'm not saying that the doctor's always right, but at least consider the fact that there's a person behind the disease that you should be respecting.
We are, but we also have the war of opioids affecting us as well.
Yes.
Hi.
And
Hi,
Hi,
wow,
Marissa.
Marissa.
I haven't been sitting here that long, but I probably don't have that long before medication decides to kick in, as we all know how that happens. So I just thought I should take advantage of my little window. And first of all, say hi. You have a really great conversation going on here, and I wanted to jump in, and so I did. One, but two, just very quickly. Um, I was listening, I was in my bed, trying to be a good patient and not work, and then I ended up
Yet
here.
here you are.
I'm here, and yet here I am. Yes, and Sherry also get on you like, and why? And so is Dr. Simone, but that's okay. I have a real good point, and I'm gonna go to bed.
Okay.
I just want to say very quickly, I was listening to you all discuss. I was listening to Tracy talk about her time in Italy and how, she had to fight for the water. And every time I hear that story, it like makes me cringe on like levels I didn't know I could cringe on. And then, and then I was listening to Nelda talk about, um, the instructions that that the jurors had to be given, and like how they should be the same instructions doctors should be given, and Dr. Simone as a physician and a patient. And the thing that just trips me out time and time again is, why is it that sickle cell patients are never seen in a place, are coming from a position of power or of ed- education, not coming from a position where we know what's going on? It's like, of all the people in the room, we are always automatically assumed to be the the dumbest, the least knowing, the the ones that have no clue. Like the last person that you should be listening to is that person, the patient that's lived with this their entire life. And um, as you're talking about getting older and how transferring from peds to adult care, that's the one thing when everybody talks about, God, well, what can we do to make that transition easier? What can we do to make it easier? You can carry on that tradition of acknowledging and teaching and actually listening to your pediatric patient, your child patient as the expert, you can carry that over to their adult care.
Exactly.
And you might run into, I would say, a good 75% less issues than what you have now. And I don't understand why it is. Up until about 7 months ago, I'll say, I really, truly, and I have to apologize to just doctors. I really thought it was just the doctors that kind of did this, abracadabra. I just happen to have my little wand here. Abracadabra, you're an adult, therefore you don't know nothing. Uh, Magic trick. But really, really, it's not. It's not just the doctor. It's not just the nurse. It's the administration. It's it's the whole system. It's the advocates. It's the advocacy groups. It's sometimes it's the people that brought you to the hospital. I mean, I remember I had a friend said to me in front of a doctor, "Well, are you sure you know what you're saying? Because you really did take a lot of that medicine before we got here."
What? Okay, you know what?
What?
It's time for me to go. Cause I see.
What?
Okay. Now you can't make me get this mad
What?
on camera. That's just
I'm not
crazy.
saying
That's just not.
though,
That
but
doesn't even merit a response. That's crazy.
it doesn't, but it speaks to. I'm gonna put down my little wand. Isn't it cute though? I think Nyla left this here. Um,
I knew it looked familiar.
no, then I'm gonna go back to my bed because I promised y'all I would be in bed. But I just want to
Yeah, you
say,
did.
I did. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to say, I think that we are in a culture of a culture of just not, I can't say not caring. I don't know if the word is I'm looking for, but it's a culture in which the patient is dead last on all fronts. Even to the point that, like, as I've said before, myself as a patient, I have called as an advocate to an advocate on behalf of a patient to get help. And the immediate starting point is, what did the patient do wrong?
Well, I mean,
Why
think about
is
it though,
it
Marissa. That's not
always the
just with
patient
sickle cell.
wrong?
I think that's us
It's the people in
as a
general.
people of color. I mean, look at how the police, treats us, right? Look at, I mean, a rogue cop could come and kill somebody. Um, Trayvon Martin, is it Trayvon?
Mhm.
Yeah. I moved to Florida when that happened, and I was so traumatized. I told my husband I got off of my clinic day, and I was like, I need to be there. Like, we need to be at the rally. We need to be at the march because this is so ridiculous. How can a teenager coming home with Skittles and by the end of that week, we heard that he had smoked pot one time in his life. We heard all kinds. It's like they just dug up all the, to make to basically disempower him. And they did a drug test on him and not on the person who pulled a gun
Exactly.
after the police officer said, "Don't pull a gun," right? He wanted to be a sheriff. He's a sheriff. He always wanted to be. He's a vigilante cop. So he goes and shoots somebody. Nobody drug tests him, but they drug test the victim, the
The
person who
victim.
who 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 died. And so I think a lot of what you're referring to is stuff that we won't be able to answer tonight because it really is coming from a deeper place. It's coming from the fact that we are people of color who have been disenfranchised for a long time. And it doesn't matter whether we're accessing healthcare or police care or whatever care. There's that layer that always seems to follow us, but not always. I hate saying always and never, but that often seem to follow us and kind of affect the outcome in that way and make us like we are the bad guy even when we're laying on the street dead. Like,
Laying on the street dead or lying in a hospital bed and
exactly.
you can't move.
That's the
But
parallel I'm making.
yeah,
Either way, we
we're,
are we
we're
are going
wrong.
to be the bad guy
And you'll do
somehow.
anything from your past that they can dig up to even, make it seem like you weren't that great of a person, and you deserve
Right.
better
Like,
help.
did you go to other ERs before you came to ours? Or, how often are you admitted to the hospital?
Mm-hmm.
Or, or even having the nerve to say, I don't feel comfortable treating you, or we're only supposed to give you 1 milligram of the allotted.
We're gonna watch the Lenox Hill pain episode. Is it next week we start, Tracy, or week after next? When we're starting what we call, I don't think we have a name for the show yet, but either way, we're watching TV shows in which they show sickle cell.
Mm-hmm.
They highlight sickle cell in their storylines, and we will be doing watch parties and talking about how the sickle cell is handled. Tracy is actually our hostess, yay.
Yay.
But I just want to say very quickly, our first show is Lenox Hill, episode 7, Pain. And I only bring it up because Dr. Simone said something that was vital. She said, how many ERs did you go to before you came
Mm-hmm.
here? Oh, I'm not comfortable with giving you that medicine. And in this documentary, this doctor, if we can call her that, she actually says to a sickle cell patient, she says to him, um, everything is from a position of like he's, he is a bad guy. He's a criminal. I can't give you medication straight from the pharmacy. He's like, I didn't ask you for that. Oh, well, I see that he got Percocet. He got 30 Percocet over a 10-day period. Wow, he's just eating them like Skittles.
Mm.
30
30
Percocet?
over a 10-day
10
period.
days. It means
Okay.
he's in crisis. Like, that's 3 a day. That's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then she really makes the comment, he's not really in a crisis, but with them, it's really difficult. Why is
Okay,
it?
it's time for me to
Where
go.
it's time
Good
for me to
night.
go too, but why is it? And then I'm gonna leave, but I just want to leave you guys with this. Why is it always that as patients we are seen from the position of A, dishonest, B, uh, uh, without knowledge. I don't want to say stupid, but without knowledge. And C, lack of power on all levels. And I think that is one of the major problems in our culture, the medical culture, sickle cell culture, however you want to put it, is that the patient who is absolutely the um, the expert, because at the very least they're an expert on themselves. They might not be an
Exactly.
expert on sickle cell, but they're an expert on sickle cell and how sickle cell runs in their body, right? Why
Right.
is it that when that person leaves PEDS, all of a sudden they are to be the most distrusted person
Their
in the
sickle
room?
cell stopped hurting, didn't you know?
Oh, I didn't. I didn't get the memo because mine
Yeah,
mine is
girl.
on fire. It's on
If
fire. It's
anything,
Cells
like
stopped sickling and everything.
Doc,
Bone
everything is
marrow,
done, right?
everything went back to normal.
Well, my
before,
sickle cell has not stopped hurting, and I didn't want to crash, but I kind of did. I'm leaving now. I
before
just
that,
did want to leave you with this real quick. Um, we're not the last in the room that you should be, consulting, and we have the
What?
most
I didn't hear
knowledge.
what you said. What did you say? We're not
I
the what?
said I said we're not the last in the room that should be consulted. We're the
Oh,
first in
I
the
see.
room that should be consulted. And we are the ones with the most knowledge, especially on ourselves. And I just, this thing is bothering me. It's bothering me that patients are just seeing just at the bottom of the ditch, and it's seemingly by everybody that we're supposed to rely on or consider an ally in our care. We seem to come last, and I don't
Well, not
understand.
everybody, because I mean, we certainly
Well,
have great
we're
nurses
here
and doctors, but they're overwhelmingly a lot of not
as
great
a
nurses.
culture. That's what I'm trying to say. As a
Okay.
culture, we seem to come last, and that
And
sucks.
that is very true. But you know what? That's why I'm done talking. I don't want to do any more talk shows. I don't want to do any more. We need to organize and do something. We need to have buddy
Yeah.
systems where we're with people when they go to the doctor on the phone, ready to advocate for them. We need to organize and get that rolling because right now, that's all I could think of and only way I know how right now to fix the problem. And if that's all, when I can think of something else, I'll do something else. But right now, this is what I know, and this is what I'm gonna do until my breath runs out. I'm going to be there, and I will be on the phone for that obstinate doctor that doesn't want to talk to anybody else except the doctor. Okay, Dr. Yuan is right here. I can talk to you. I can use your language and say whatever we need to say to get the job done.
Dr. Simone,
Okay.
there is someone that did ask, what can he do about not being able to go to any ER, as he lives in Detroit, Michigan, because they do not want to treat him? What advice can you?
But it depends. It depends on the reason they're giving to not. You can't say you don't carry pain medication. That's you cannot say you can. That's dumb. You need an advocate. Just you need,
Yeah.
You need an
To
you
Mr.
need an
advocate.
Darius,
advocate.
yeah, definitely an advocate.
Call,
Connect with
call
an
us.
advocate. We are currently working. Dr. Simone is actually providing a class as we're creating medical advocates in which you can connect with in the future. So hopefully this is something that you can make use of, and we'd be able to help you going forward. But definitely that would be the advice that I can provide for now.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, folks. It's been over an hour. There's nothing else
Yes.
to add. I
Oh,
know we've been
My
speaking.
husband is kicking his head around the corner, going, "Are you done yet? Are you done yet?"
I don't want to keep anybody, it's been a while. So if there is anything you guys want to add in the comments, we will get back to you. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you,
Um,
Tracy. Yes.
Me.
thank you, Marissa, for going against doctor's orders.
Go
It's
back to bed,
really
Back to
Marissa.
bed, yes.
Marissa.
Yes.
We love you. Listen, we have to preserve you. We got work to do, so you got to go rest.
I know, but then it hit me. That was like the spirit came. The spirit was like, tell her,
Oh
spirit,
man, Marissa pulling
spirit,
in
Yeah.
the spirit and
up
everything.
in
Okay.
here, all up in here with it. And the
And
Okay.
spirit is
okay.
telling me, the spirit is telling me to tell y'all, hashtag stop sickle cell abuse. This is our focus, as my four wonderful allies and friends in this fight have said. but our focus really is on the patient and on the advocate and on the caregiver. Because at the end of the day, if I get one more snide remark about, well, why are you blaming the doctors? Well, what are you doing? Well, we're
This is
asking the
what we're
doctors.
doing.
Yeah, so we're asking the doctors to actually do their jobs. And what we're doing is we are providing programs in which our patients, advocates, and caregivers can get better education, better empowerment, learn different strategies,
And support.
learn different uh, just things about sickle cell and how to treat it. We are making ourselves better so that when we walk into those hospital rooms, we can then make our doctors better should they choose
Exactly.
to listen to
Yeah.
us. And if they don't listen, well, that's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
But that's what we're doing. We're starting with the patient. And if you want information, please DM us, DM me, and we will get the information to you as quickly as possible. Our webinar is coming, and we are published, guys. Our continuing education units class, Sickle Cell, the patient's perspective on adult care, will be available in May to nurses and to dentists. And hopefully we will have it out by Christmas for doctors. So
Awesome.
we're off. We're on a roll. Okay, I'm going to go to my bed now.
Thank you. And my prayers to everyone that is not feeling well, myself included. But our community, my prayers, because I know there is a rise of many of us that are not feeling our best. So I hope that as the evening passes, our pain and discomfort is healed. And I appreciate you all.
And you are very loved, which is why we are doing this. Because we actually see the person behind the disease and we think y'all worth it. That's
Don't forget to grab a copy of Dr. Simone's book.
there you go.
Marissa has linked the Amazon link in the
Yeah.
so
You can
grab.
email Dr. Simone Says. It's the same price as Amazon, and you get an autographed copy. And thank you, Tracy. I'm gonna send you your cut. Look at it.
It's all love and support.
All right, bye guys.
Guys, with my positive words of wisdom, which is start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Until next time, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to us. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all the great stuff. Until next time, peace. Bye. Oh, I keep doing that.